Welcome to Francis Reads the Bible, and today I'm moving on to chapter 2 of Exodus. So, Exodus chapter 2, during this time, a man from the tribe of Levi married a woman of his own tribe and she bore him a son. When she saw what a fine baby he was, she hid him for 3 months. This baby must have been so gorgeous, like beyond handsome for babies, for her to wow, for the Bible to have even said what a fine baby he was. Then from verse 3, when she couldn't hide him any longer, she took a basket made of reeds and covered it with tar to make it watertight. She put the baby in it and then placed it in the tall grass at the edge of the river. The baby's sister stood some distance away to see what would happen to him. Okay, knowing now that this baby is Moses, so the sister will be his elder sister, Miriam. Miriam, yeah. So that's the sister that stood some distance away to see what would happen to him. And I've seen people say, oh, it was a miracle that the baby Moses didn't drown. Such a huge miracle or miracle. Well, the Bible made it clear that she took a basket made of reeds and covered it with tar to make it watertight, waterproof. So water couldn't get into that basket. This was a physical doing. So that's how water didn't get into the basket that baby Moses was in, because she covered it with tar to make it watertight. So from verse 5, the king's daughter came down to the river to bathe, while her servants walked along the bank. Suddenly she noticed the basket in the tall grass and sent a slave woman to get it. The princess opened it and saw a baby boy. He was crying and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister, who was hiding to see what will happen, came out and said, "Shall I go and call a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby for you?" "Please do," she answered. So the girl went and brought the baby's own mother. Of course, what was she going to call? She was going to bring her mom. So the princess told the woman, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So she took the baby and nursed him. Later, when the child was old enough, she took him to the king's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. She said to herself, "I pulled him out of the water, and so I named him Moses." The hand of God in this story wasn't the watertight basket, which was covered with tar, but that the basket didn't flow into the river, as in, like, the basket didn't go far. Like, you know how there's a current in the water and then waves and whatnot. Yes. And then that's the king's daughter, the princess, saw the baby and favored the child, even knowing that was one of the babies of the Hebrew people. And she knew her father had said, "Let all Hebrew sons be drowned." But she said to save this baby. That's the hand of God. It's only God that can cause that kind of favor. And then she brings the child's mom unknown to her. Maybe she found out later and said, "Wean this baby for me, breastfeed it, do all that. When the baby is grown, bring the baby back to me." So I'm thinking, at what age was that baby brought back? When the child was old enough, maybe 2 years, 3 years old. Maybe Moses was 2 years old or 3 years old, and child was brought to the king's daughter, who adopted Moses, him, as her own son. It must be hard though for the little boy, even though he's been adopted as one of the king's daughter's children. I'm sure skin tones were different. I'm sure looks are different, you know. And the other kids knew this boy is different. He's a Hebrew. He's Hebrew. I'm sure he was different, and I'm sure he must have been bullied growing up, and all the because kids can be mean. Children are mean, and they tell him every time, um you're just a charity case. You're not one of us. You're a Hebrew, you're a servant, you're a slave. And then little Moses, now keep looking at the other Hebrews who were slaves or servants around. I'm like, oh, these are my people. because the skin tone, the facial features, and whatnot would tally. He must have been so, he must have stuck out like a sore thumb. Sore thumb. It's like being um a mixed race kid, and let's say you're mixed race, black and Asian, and the Asians will be like, "Oh, you're not one of us," and the black people will be like, "Oh, you're not one of us." It must be so sad, confusing, having an identity crisis, not knowing where you belong. You know. So yeah, the princess raised him as her son, but still, imagine being black and being adopted by an Asian family. It's obvious you're not Asian, you're black. I'm sure that's how he felt for him. So when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his people, the Hebrews. He knew. I'm sure, like I said, his facial features, his skin tone, hair, all that, it will be obvious. And probably his wet nurse, who was his real mother, and his sister Miriam must have kept tabs and in touch with him. So, and he saw how they were forced to do hard labor. He even saw an Egyptian kill a Hebrew, one of Moses' own people. Moses looked around, all around, and when he saw no one was watching, he killed the Egyptian and hid his body in the sand. Okay, now let's pause here for a bit. When Moses knew that this Egyptian killed this Hebrew, being the son of the princess, who is the daughter of the king of Egypt, he had choices. Like I said, there's always a choice. He could have reported this Egyptian, you know, found somewhat of some restitution for the Hebrew who was killed, for the family members of the Hebrew who was killed. He could have done something. And he also had power as the grandson of the king. But all he could do at that time was to kill the Egyptian. Moses didn't need to kill this Egyptian. But then let's remember the bloodline. I've spoken about it before that there are curses in this bloodline. And he's a Levite. When Jacob died, before Jacob died, he cursed his son Levi. Because according to him, he said, Levi killed people and animals for sports. He was hot tempered, that his anger would never depart him. So Levi was a very angry person. Levi was cursed to always be angry, and because he murdered for the fun of it and all that. So that was, and I believe that thing passed on through his descendants. Just look at Moses. What kind of anger would cause you to kill a man, even if he killed someone you know, or someone who is from your tribe? He was the grandson to the king of Egypt, even though he was adopted. He could have gone through the legal means or a legal way or something to address this issue, but no, in anger, he killed the man. Because, like I said, it's in his blood. There's a curse of anger and murder in his bloodline. Okay. So, an Egyptian rescued us. I can imagine Moses' shock in realizing that he killed that man after the anger had gone. Like, oh my, I just killed someone because I was angry. It's in his bloodline. There's a curse on Levi that has passed on to his descendants. So the next day he went back and saw two Hebrew men fighting. He said to the one who was in the wrong, "Why are you beating up a fellow Hebrew?" Then the man answered, "Who made you our ruler and judge? Are you going to kill me just as you killed that Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and said to himself, because he thought nobody saw him. He saw no one was watching when he killed the man. Then in verse 12. So he now ran, like people have found out what I have done. So he ran away. When the king heard about what had happened, he tried to have Moses killed, but Moses fled and went to live in the land of Midian. One day, when Moses was sitting by a well, okay, let me go back to verses 14 to 16, 15 rather. This is what they call nobody sent you. I don't know why he was expecting that the Hebrews would praise him for killing a man. No. Like I said, Moses is like a mixed race kid who belongs nowhere. He's not Asian, he's not black. Like the Asians are like, you're not one of us. The blacks are like, you're not one of us. So he's stuck, and he did kill that man maybe in anger. Like, he killed my people. He's also Egyptian. He forgot that part. Maybe thinking, oh, maybe my people would accept me. But see, it's those same people who made it known that he killed somebody, and then the king's there looking for him to punish him. But he ran away. So you see, nowhere he had acceptance, nowhere, nowhere. And even the Hebrews, he thought he was helping. They didn't want it. Who made you a ruler? And that anger of, who is this Hebrew boy that is now the king's grandson? What's he even feeling like? You know, it's coming to tell us this, tell us that. Who do you think you are? Something like that. So one day when Moses was sitting by a well, seven daughters of Jethro, the priest of Midian, came to draw water and fill the troughs for their father's sheep and goats. Priest of Midian does not mean they worship God, for it's that of Catholic priests or some other priest. Or no, there was no Christianity at this time, there was no Jewish religion, there was nothing. So these people worship gods. So there's a priest of Midian. I don't know the gods the Midianites worshipped at that time, but I know it is not the god of the Hebrews. Anyway, so when Moses was sitting by a well, so Jethro had seven beautiful daughters. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Wow. So they came to fetch water for their father, and but some shepherds drove Jethro's daughters away. Then, because they are girls, and the shepherds will be males. They're like, come and get out. We're going to fetch water before you. So ungentlemanly. Instead of saying ladies first. Anyways, then Moses went to their rescue and watered the animals for them. When they returned to their father, was like, "Oh, why have you come back so early today?" An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds, they answered, and he even drew water for us and watered our animals. Where is he? Because he's an Egyptian, he'll be dressed like an Egyptian, he will look, because the paintings, what all that on his body, his mode of dressing, everything is Egyptian. Remember, he was the adopted grandson of the king of Egypt. You know. So where is he? He asked his daughters. Where did you leave? Why did you leave man out there? Go and invite him to eat with us. So Moses decided to live there with the priest of Midian. And Jethro gave him his daughter Zipporah in marriage, who bore him a son. Moses said to himself, I am a foreigner in this land, and so I name him Gershom. This was one of the times where it's not like today where you can be where you are and you find a husband in some different country. In those days of no letters, no whatnot, it's from around you you get married, you know. And women didn't really have a choice. He said Jethro gave him his daughter Zipporah, and not Zipporah married. So times were different. And now Moses has gone from being a mixed race kid who is neither Asian or black to go live amongst the Europeans. So now I am a foreigner in this land, and so I name him Gershom. Years later, the king of Egypt died, but the Israelites were still groaning under their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry went up to God, who heard their groaning and remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He saw the slavery of the Israelites and was concerned for them. Let's not get it twisted. God knew the Israelites were going to go into slavery. When he made a covenant with Abraham, when Abraham was still alive, before he even gave birth to Isaac, he showed Abraham the future of his descendants. And he told them, I'm going to make your descendants great in number and in might. And then they will go to a strange foreign land and they will be slaves there for 400 years. But at the end of that 400 years, I will bring them out of captivity. Now, yeah, I wonder, why didn't God just do it since He already said it? He knew this was going to happen in 400 years. He knew the Israelites would complain, they will groan, they will call out to Him for help. even though people had free will, they might just have decided not to, you know. But they did. And then God heard their cries and he remembered that covenant. And this is a future that God had already foretold to Abraham before it came to pass, you know. So sometimes, which is why the word of God says, remind me of my word, remind God of that covenant, that prophecy, that word he gave you over something, Remind me of my word. It will never return to him void. God could have just rescued the Israelites or the Hebrews from what they were suffering, but then when they got rescued without even crying for help, would they know it was God? Would they acknowledge it was God that did it? Or would they not say, oh, we got out of slavery by our own might and wisdom? You know, there will be no glory in it for God. It's when you need help and you cry to God for help, He comes. But if you feel you can do it by yourself on your own, no problem. Humans have free will, which is why when you invite God into that situation, I believe God hears you and He comes into it and He wades into the matter. So, which is what is happening here now. Even though God had foretold this for many years ago, during the time of Abraham, told Abraham see what will happen. It took this to happen for God to say, yes, it is time to honor that covenant and bring these people out of the land of Egypt, to bring them out of captivity. They're crying to me for help, So it's time. Let me show them who I am. Let me bring them out of this situation. They have asked me to get involved. They know they cannot do this by themselves. So it is time to do something about it. So God stepped into the matter. Excuse me. So God stepped into the matter. So what I've learned from this chapter is there is something called bloodline curses or ancestral curses and covenants, which is what Moses went through. You know, in his bloodline, Levi, his ancestor, was cursed with the curse of anger and bloodshed. He was a murderer. He was always getting angry. So that curse was in his bloodline, which was why in a situation where he had political power and authority to do something about a situation, he never ever crossed his mind. In a fit of anger, he killed someone when he could have just easily had the guy arrested and done something about it. But no, he forgot he was the adopted grandson of the king of Egypt, and he could have, dealt with that Egyptian guy that killed a Hebrew. But no, he forgot. And he took matters in a fit of anger, he killed the man. So not sometimes, it is important to break ancestral curses and covenants. Because one day they will just rear their ugly head when you don't even expect it. Which is what happened to Moses. And now he's a runaway, a captive in the land of the Midianites. He had to run away for his life out of fear, you know. And then sometimes people you try to help don't even want to be helped. They will look at you like, who do you think you are? Did I ask you for help? They didn't ask for help. Nobody came to cry and tell him, oh, this Egyptian killed a Hebrew man, help us. No. And then when he tried to help again, they threw it at his face. Who begged you? So you want to kill me to the way you killed that person? So it's good to wait for people to sometimes let them ask for help before you help. If not, to be a thankless effort of who asked you, and it could also get you in trouble. There was no wisdom applied in this situation. And then also, um, sometimes it is good to move from where you are. You are not a tree, which was what happened to Moses. Even though he had killed someone, it was when he moved to a different land that he found a wife, he got married, and he had a son. He built his family because he moved from the land of Egypt. If you're not happy in that state, in that country, in that city, sometimes maybe just move. You are not a tree. You could move for months and see what moving feel like, maybe to favor you or not, then you can move back. It depends. So sometimes moving is necessary, is important for your next stage in life, which is what happened to Moses. He got married, he started his own family. And then also, God is a God that remembers, He does not forget. And God will not come into a matter until you ask for help. Heaven needs your permission to move, which is what happens with children of Israel. Now they are crying up to God for help. It is time to move, to intercede, for God to intercede in the matter. So that's one thing I've learned as well. So as always, I like to sing it. I am not a pastor. I am not an evangelist. I am not a position in the church. I'm not a deacon, deaconess, or whatever, or a Bible teacher. I am just a Christian, reading her Bible and hoping that it helps you somehow, maybe encourages you to read yours, or maybe in listening, you learn something or the other, or it touches you or blesses you somehow. Please pardon me, I have a cold. And as always, my name is Frances Ukeke, and this is Frances Reads the Bible. God bless you. Until next time, goodbye.